that is a good position for somebody to have after having dealt with this. Like, the correct stance once the leopards have eaten your face is, ow, that was bad. I wish for that not to happen again. So, More Perfect Union has a video on a dude who voted for Trump and it costed him his job. Now, usually when you see something like this, it means that somebody voted in a way that the boss did not like, and therefore the boss has taken away their job as a result, and that's bad. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the video and see what they actually meant there. But first, let's go into the fan art section of the Discord to see what we can find. Boobies. It's boobies. We found boobies. This one is from Jet saying, it's been a while, but here's some updated pictures of the Suris doll. Do you know that there's a green smart doll now? If I had like $300, I could totally make a Suris doll. So there are a bunch of pictures here of this Suris doll. And you know what? Perfect. Just everything is correct here. Everything is correct. Thank you very much for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, we're going to go ahead and take a look at today's video, which is technically going to be on this screen, but I need to see if I can get the second monitor up instead. It should pop over here, right? Pop. There we go. Aha, we did it. And now we can final our fantasies while we do this.
I had heard people say if you vote for this, you're going to get what you voted for. But that's what people say every election.
A catastrophic wave of layoffs is hitting electricians in Maine. It may be a preview of hundreds of thousands of jobs that could be lost nationwide after President Trump and Republicans just repealed billions in clean energy investments.
It was like a light switch got opened, and all of our work just disappeared overnight.
We went to Maine, where a solar boom has already come to an abrupt halt.
I got laid off at the beginning of May. I haven't gotten any calls yet.
I'm on
Orgasm,
right
thank you for
now
subscribing.
in the state of Maine. That's $595 per week, and I pay rent. That's $13.50 a month.
This has nothing to do with our local union or the companies around us getting jobs. It solely comes down to what's happening in our federal government right now.
We came here to talk to electricians who voted for Trump to understand how are they thinking about his agenda now that it's costing them work. We're outside Bangor, Maine, and we're headed to meet an apprentice electrician who's been working steadily for the last several years, but suddenly he finds himself unemployed, and he wants to talk to us about why.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
So I actually heard about this a little bit. Not this specific guy, but at one of my local card shops, the one I go to on Fridays, there was a guy who actually works for the local and was mentioning that several people are actually losing work because of the Trump administration within the union. And this is something that he's been dealing with for a while now. So, I've heard this locally to me. And that's really scary. Like, the last thing you want to find out is that, yes, actually, everything that you were worried about happening is going to be happening, and it's happening in your fucking backyard.
You, Sam.
Braden, come right in.
Thank you so much.
A good friend of mine in high school, he was 3 grades above me, and whenever I'd go over to his house, he'd have $2,000 guitars, like a $5,000 Marshall amplifier. And I'm like, where are you getting all this money, dude? And he's like, well, I'm an electrician. I'm learning to be an electrician. You should do it too.
Braden House is an apprentice electrician who last year voted.
So, also, the people who work for the electricians union that go to my card shops, because there's multiples that I go to now depending on the day, they actually do make enough money to afford some pretty expensive fucking magic decks. Way prettier than the shit that I'm able to afford. Holy shit. If you can manage to keep that job, it does pull quite a good bit of money.
For Trump.
After finding out I was having my daughter at 17, I'm like, I need money, and it ain't gonna be spent on guitars and amplifiers. It's gonna be spent on diapers and making a future for this kid. I applied to the apprenticeship and heard back in March of 22, and I started work 3 weeks after I graduated high school. I'm a 17-year-old kid. They're asking me like life experience questions. I'm like, I don't know, dude. I work at a Dunkin' Donuts. My first week, I get in, I get a check for $1,300 for a 40-hour week, and I'm like, ooh. Yep, this is what I'm doing now. I'm sticking with this.
Yep, that's huge.
Obviously, you see the arrays of solar panels, and you see underneath it.
Braden took me to one of the 8 solar projects he has helped build over the last several years.
Nothing beats like just before August, like May to June in a solar field.
I remember being on a solar field one day, and I get an email of my Lincoln Financial account. I'm like, holy shit, I've only been doing this for a year and a half, and I have $3,000 in my retirement account.
Why do you think the work was so steady?
Because there were so many solar projects. You can't go anywhere in the state without seeing a solar field or multiple.
It kept every
and then the energy initiatives have been gutted by Trump. Oh, that fucking sucks. Guitar says, and yet they voted for Trump. So a constant that I have noticed is that union people tend to be right-wing. And when I'm talking about unions, I'm talking about your hands are greasy at the end of the day because you've been working out in the yard unions. Unions of people who are working in construction, unions for people who are working in blue-collar industry. They largely end up being right-wing. And it's ironic because the union, together the union makes us strong. The union is the thing that is providing them with their jobs, their labor, their protections, their contracts, all of that. All of that is voted for by all of that is stuff that the union is supposed to be there to help provide. And people end up voting against the union effectively when they do shit like this, when they vote for Trump. I don't think most people realize that anti-union people, anti-union politicians, are usually going to be equally against their union as they are against other unions. There's this idea that a lot of people tend to have that their position is somehow special, their position is somehow unique, their position is one that's not going to be affected. So, it's not so much that they're voting against the union, and that's surprising. It's that they don't realize they're voting against the union. And I'm not shitting you. That's what it boils down to, is a lot of people just do not realize, in general, what the end results of their actions are. They hear that jobs are going to come back for them if they vote for Trump, that he's going to bring work back for them, and they think that that applies to them specially and specifically. They don't read through the 900 pages of Project 2025 to realize that actually they're going to get hurt by this. They're not doing that. And I promise you, most Democrats didn't read Project 2025 through its entirety either. That's not me trying to make excuses for people to being, for being voters that are ill-informed, but most people, especially blue-collar workers, when they are tired at the end of a shift, the one thing they want to do is go home and drink a beer. They don't want to have to think about the different ways that their job is going to get destroyed by a bunch of bureaucrats. And in fact, they've been lied to by those bureaucrats, telling them that their jobs are safe in their hands, that they're in fact going to be getting more work for them. Listen to speeches from Trump to workers. He will always claim that he's bringing prosperity back, that he's bringing jobs back. People who are listening to him don't generally hear the ways that he's being disdainful to the working class, because that's not the message he's telling them specifically. Lenari says they're gullible and they think that their thing is an exception to the rule. You're not wrong. But it's very hard for me to blame those individual voters when they are being lied to, and most people are not very good judges of when they're being lied to. Most people don't have a very good barometer for that. We all pretend we do. We all think we do. We all want to say we're the ones that will spot a liar in the crowd, but the reality is most of these people can't. Because it's not a skill that they have, because it's not a skill most people have.
Electrician in our local union employed.
Scott Cuddy is a longtime electrician out of the same union local as Braden. He told me that until recently, there were so few jobs for electricians that they had to take across-the-board pay cuts to get work.
We had 0 solar projects going on for years and years and years. Guys were traveling to other jurisdictions to go work on solar projects.
That started to change in 2022.
President Biden's signing of the Inflation Reduction Act today comes after more than a year of negotiations among Democrats in Congress.
The Inflation Reduction Act was the largest federal investment in clean energy jobs in American history. It provided tax credits that encouraged business to build renewable projects like solar, wind, and battery storage. And as those projects multiplied, the landscape for skilled trades workers transformed.
The rate for a union electrician is currently about $39 an hour. In 2020, we were at about $29, $30 an hour. So we have seen an enormous increase in the wages for the people doing the work, and that's because when you have work to do, you get bargaining power.
This is true. When you've got when you have a bunch of projects that need doing, you are able to negotiate your rates way better because you are in demand. You can't negotiate those rates when a president has gutted your entire industry, which is what Trump did.
The amount of money they'd pay you per hour to get you there, and it was competitive. Companies were competing on how much they would pay their guys to get the amount of guys that they needed to finish these solar fields. Solar, it fed my family. You know, solar lined my pockets. It gave me work for years.
Take me through your thinking. What was your thinking when you decided to vote for Trump?
When I voted for Trump, my big thing was I agreed with his stance on immigration. I agreed with his idea of no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. I liked his stance on no new wars. And now we're seeing the exact opposite happen. The immigration thing and Palestine were two of the biggest things that turned people off to the Biden administration and to the potential Harris administration. At least in who I've spoken to on job sites.
What was your reaction when Trump was elected?
I was not surprised.
But were you happy? I mean, you voted for Trump.
Yeah, I was pretty happy. Happy's not the right word. I was indifferent. I was more, great. The better of two evils. Let's hope nothing goes bad. And then now it's going bad.
Since January, at least $14 billion of renewable...
I really shouldn't be laughing at that, but on the one hand, it's very hard for me to blame every voter for what ultimately ends up happening as a result of their vote. It's very hard for me to blame every single one. Because at the end of the day, a lot of voters are very misinformed. They lack a lot of critical information. They do not have everything they need at the voting booth. And hell, if they encounter somebody new at the voting booth that they don't recognize, most voting booths do not allow you to have your cell phone out in general. So if you encounter something that you didn't know right off the bat, you just have to make that decision without being informed in any way, shape, or form. And that's... I feel kind of weird about that. I don't know. My stance on phones being allowed in voting booths is probably a bit different than most people. I think they should be generally allowed. Because I think when you encounter something that you don't quite understand, you should be able to look at the sourcing for it while you're in there. Or at the very least, take a picture of everything and say, hey, can I step outside and then come back and do my vote in a second? Jassa says, the case for mail-in ballots, I don't know any judge I vote for until I research as I fill out the ballot. Yeah, see, that's one of the benefits of having a mail-in ballot, or hell, even having an online ballot, If we can do our taxes online, then why in the balls can't we have our ballots done online? Yenzo says, when I went into the ballots, the amendment wording was pretty complicated. It generally is. It's hard to actually get a perfect idea of what every law is that you're voting on, what every single stance is for every person there. It's hard to know. It's hard to know. People who are constantly plugged in politically have a higher chance of being informed. So the fair ballot language has to be super condensed. Yep, because you can't have, you know, all 200 lines of a fucking law there. Guitar Rocker says, Biden and Harris were hawkish on immigration, and you'd know that if you did your research, but instead this dumbass drank the Kool-Aid without doing any research and voted for Trump anyway. If you don't know, just don't vote at that point. I can understand that perspective. I can understand the perspective of if you didn't know, if you didn't have any idea, then why did you confidently cast your vote? I get that. But that's also why I believe that it should be easier to get that information at the polling place. Again, if you're a blue-collar worker and you're doing 10 to 12-hour days, and you just don't have the mental spoons when you get home to do jack shit, then at the very least, having more access to that information at the polling booth would be helpful. And one of the ways that you can do that, one of the ways you can have access to the information, is by making sure that you're able to do those votes at home with a mail-in ballot, where your phone is going to be near you. Dorito says, a motion to rescind the rescinded motion for rescension. Agree or disagree? Like, a lot of my problems with the current ways we handle voting basically get fixed once you allow people to have access to the thing that lets you plug into all of the information in the world all at once, when you're making the decision that matters a fuck ton. Lenari says, my friend Circle benefited from one friend who did the research on local elections and presented her findings to everybody. But that is good. That is very good. I like that. That requires people to have the time to be politically involved in the first place. And I did make a video a while back pointing out that one of the ways that right-wingers win, frankly, like to put it bluntly, one of the ways right-wingers win is by having a less educated public. And one of the ways they have a less educated public is by making sure that that public is spending all of their time working and exhausted. If that public is spending so much of their time working and exhausted, they're not going to have the time or the wherewithal to do the proper research, and then they're going to likely vote for the people who have more money and more propaganda to sway their vote. Lenari says, or Fennec says, I honestly would like when I get my sample ballot some more info. More info blocks? Yeah.
Renewable energy projects have been canceled or put on hold across the U.S., including 3 big solar and battery developments.
Because we're going to have clean coal.
The February union meeting of this year, of 2025, the business manager during his report said, guys, I can chart out full employment to mid-2027 right now. At the March union meeting, he said, we're going to be looking at 50% unemployment this summer. It went from, I can see full work, get your strength back so you can get back out on the job for the next thing, till 2027, to we will be at 50% unemployment this year. The uncertainty has devastated the construction industry in Maine.
That is a fucking wild swing.
I think an important point in this is the tax credits aren't even gone yet.
A week after this conversation, Republicans in Congress passed Trump's so-called Big Beautiful Bill, drastically scaling back investments in solar and wind. The bill rapidly...
Every single one of those people, just a gross fucking waste of human space.
Phases out the Inflation Reduction Act's clean energy investments, preserving funding only for projects up and running in the next 18 months. That will likely derail hundreds of billions of dollars of planned construction and eliminate hundreds of thousands of jobs. When did you realize this would affect you?
It really hit me about 2 weeks into my layoff.
It was around the
because
time that the
at
leopards
first it
ate
was
my
like, Yeah,
face.
these layoffs should only last 1 or 2 weeks. And then the 4th week came around, and that's when it really hit me that we might be in for no work for a while.
Braden is one of 66 apprentices in his union who've been laid off since April. He's now on a waiting list for the next job, with nearly 30 people ahead of him.
I've seen 3 people move off that list in the last 60 days. In summer, usually everyone's employed. Usually there's enough work that everyone's employed. Right now, seeing only 3 people move in 60 days, it's bleak.
I will terminate the green new scam immediately. It's the greatest
I will
scam.
terminate the green
love to
new
have the guys-
scam, the thing that actively gave you your jobs. I don't want to make fun of this guy because what he's dealing with is awful, but like, the guy who actively told you that he was going to get rid of your job when your job is based on green energy, you should have listened to him when he said he was going to do that. There's no telling that this guy specifically listened to that specific thing that was said. There's no way of knowing that. But, like, still. This shit's agitating.
Standing behind him in the hard hats when they have a press conference. But when it comes to doing the actual policy that will actually help us, we have that policy in place right now. It's the IRA. It's helped bring more people into the trades. It's helped us get paid more. And this is across the board. The policy's in place. If you just let the policy survive, we'll be fine.
This is a great bill. This is going to be a great bill for the country.
I think he could swallow his pride. He's cutting the things that Joe Biden did that made labor so good in the name of, I don't like Joe Biden, so I don't want to stand for anything he stood for. But you shouldn't be cutting something that your predecessor did that was good because he's your predecessor. You should continue to build on the good things he did. If it's creating jobs, if it's boosting the economy, why get rid of it?
On the bright side, that is a good position for somebody to have after having dealt with this. Like, the correct stance once the leopards have eaten your face is, ow, that was bad. I wish for that not to happen again. Here's the ways that the person who fucked me could engage that would prevent this from happening again. That's what you want. In an ideal world, once you have been fucked, you recognize that it happened. So I am glad that that happened. Not that he got hurt, because that would be cruel and unusual and terrible. I am happy that the end result of that is him going, this was bad, this hurt my family. I think you need to swallow your pride. That's good. The worst thing to ever happen to a narcissist is people telling the narcissist they have a narcissism problem. And the best thing to happen to a victim of narcissism is for them to recognize that the narcissist in the room did terrible things. Speaking of terrible things, I feel like I am rapidly running out of resources for this dungeon, and I do not know if I will be able to complete it. Guitar Rex says, I hope this guy does realize this and learns from it. I'm just very skeptical of it, considering how quickly so many MAGA people will fall back in line. So, I am an advocate for being absolutely ruthless when it comes to systems, but having mercy and compassion when it comes to people. And that's not a unique take that is unique to me. That's generally considered pretty decent by, I can't remember the exact person who said the quote, and I apologize for that. But I do find it to be more useful to be absolutely, terrifically ruthless to systems, to groups of bureaucrats, to groups of politicians, but to generally be far more merciful when we are talking about individual people. Because individual people are the target of manipulation. But that's all for that one. That's That's a depressing story to go out on. But there it is. And Enzo says, oh, did you know ICE stopped by some batting cages to harass some kids? Thankfully, their coach was a lawyer and told them to back off. Wouldn't it be better if their coach was John Wick and, you know, we saw how he treated people after his dog was harassed and or taken out of the picture. I'm not saying that other humans deserve to be hurt. I'm just saying that when one human comes and tries to hurt you or your friends, it's usually a good idea to make sure that that can't happen again. Also, I forgot that I had elixirs, so I was able to actually save my party here. Yeah, swing for the fences, coach. We didn't see anything. We saw nothing. Said, but the Gestapo have sold their humanity for their job. They're still people. And as a content creator on the internet with a job that requires me to talk openly with people in the public, there are certain things that are batshit fucking stupid for me to say. And I will not elaborate further. Elia High says, I mean, not to advocate for anything, but if a few hundred job openings were to, you know, happen at ICE, I think the result would be thousands of openings afterwards as the rest quit. Guitar Rocker says, I definitely agree that the politicians are a much bigger problem, for sure. What I want is a more educated population that understands what they're voting for, and that means having education resources in schools. It means more than that, though. So, like, education resources in schools is part of it. But another part of it, and maybe even a bigger part of it, honestly, is making sure that people have the time for themselves. Not just so they can do the political research, but, like, people feel like they don't have the spoons to learn about shit going on with their local politics when they feel drained merely by existing. The 40-hour work week was a fucking godsend because it allowed people time to spend with their families and then get more politically involved afterwards. Why do you think the right wing is A-okay with people having to work 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 17 fucking jobs? They're okay with it because the less educated their populace is, the happier they will be. Why did you send every attack at my Dark Knight? Cease! Holy shit! YouTuber Grudge says morale is down amongst ICE members. Good, so is ours. And if your job makes your mental health bad, quit. Would kind of prefer most ICE agents just quit in general, or at least have to tell the public why they decided that they could leave their humanity at the door. Colleen says the 40-hour work week was great when it replaced 60-hour work weeks. It's true. It is true. It was a fantastic improvement over what we had before, and it was a wonderful win for unions. Now, there are people that will tell me that it wasn't unions that won it, that it was actually an invention of Henry Ford, but, like, he only did that because he got pressured into doing it, and he got pressured into doing it because if he did not do it, if he did not give the 40-hour work week to his workers, then union competition would be able to take over his entire fucking industry. And it's okay to recognize that. Colleen says, I'm under the impression that far too many people are back to 60-hour work weeks. They are. And they shouldn't be. Jazza says, I don't know if I told you, but during my last DSA meeting, the chair said, so are you volunteering to phone bank and canvass when elections come up? And I said, yes. So I'm going to get that training in the next few months. Hell yeah. That's great. I'm happy for you. So damn 20 hours of overtime that is still taxed. The worst part about the 20 hours of overtime shit is that oftentimes you're working multiple jobs, so you don't even get that overtime. Axel says, didn't medieval peasants literally work less than the average American? I do not know. If somebody has a source for that, they can drop that source, but I'm under the impression that things have generally improved and been better for us now than they were several hundreds of years ago. But despite things being better now, that does not mean that we stop pushing for things to continue to improve. There shouldn't be a point where we say things have improved enough, they can stop improving now. That's not what you do. Kind of reminds me of that one scene from A Bug's Life where the grasshoppers talking about keeping the ants in line. That all said, I think it's a good idea to remember stories like this so that when you get onto 5 calls and you talk to your representatives and you talk to your senators and you talk to the people who are in charge of making sure that laws go a certain way in your life, that you have some context for the ways in which people have been hurt by the Trump administration. So that you know exactly the kind of stuff that you need to be worried for. Because some people are in privileged positions and have not been unduly affected by the Trump administration, but are still either Democrats or leftists who are A-okay with advocating on behalf of others and need that information for how things are so totally different for other people. So, let this be a note to go out, get involved by talking to your local politicians, get involved by going to a local DSA chapter. There are links in the description below. Get involved by going out and doing what you can to help a politician who you want to advocate for do their campaign and succeed. For me, I am actively involved in the campaign for Clarence Blaylock. I am trying to do any and all filming that he is needing to be done. So videos and editing and all that fun stuff I am handling for his campaign. So I am trying to do what I can, and I am expecting at least some of you, if not all of you if possible, to do what you can as well. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of y'all's day. That was a depressing video. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full-time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Kiratorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.